Good Wednesday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with your tropical update. We're talking about Fred. That's now finally a tropical storm. PTC number 6 finally got the upgrade yesterday evening. Also another tropical wave that's brewing in the Atlantic Basin, and that is investigative area 95L. That could become our next named system within the next 5 days. So here's the latest out in the basin. As I mentioned, Fred was born at the 11 o'clock advisory yesterday evening. Fred looks to take a track close to the west coast of Florida as we get into the later part of this upcoming weekend, just off the west coast there. And that new tropical wave 95L is certainly one to watch. So Fred is our 6th named storm of the season. Right now it is a tropical storm, and when we look at climatology, typically we find our 6th named storm not until the first week of September. So we're about a month ahead of schedule here, and really this goes until 2009. It needs a new update, but we've been running ahead of schedule pretty much for the last several seasons. It's been very, very active. All right, Tropical Storm Fred, here's the latest advisory at 1 o'clock. Infrared imagery here. It looked better when it was a potential tropical cyclone, to be honest. It is very disheveled, very disorganized. Of course, the land interaction with Hispaniola is not good for it to maintain its structure or strength, and it will likely weaken it further down to a tropical depression in the short term here. But Hurricane Center says, we still have got winds of 45 miles per hour. You need 39 miles per hour greater to be considered a tropical storm, and say we have that. Visible satellite imagery here shows a close-up image of what you can kind of point out to be the center of circulation here south of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And if that center does stay south and over the open waters, we could see it maintain its strength, but forecast is indicating that it's going to track up to the northwest and move over the higher terrain, the enhanced terrain, the highest terrain in the entire Caribbean in the next 12 hours or so. In terms of dry air interaction, that's been a problem pretty much for the entire life cycle of the system so far. And on water vapor imagery, you can see the dry air indicated by the rust color, and it is sort of trying to get itself entrained into the circulation. A lot of times, though, with the small stature of these systems, they do a good job of walling themselves off, so we'll see if that actually happens. If the dry air doesn't get it, the enhanced terrain certainly will, at least in the short term. Let's talk again about that enhanced terrain. This is home of a mountain range in Dominican Republic that has Pico Duarte, and that is the highest elevation in the entire Caribbean, 10,000 feet. High terrain, tropical systems, introduces shear, and shear is not good for storms to maintain their strength or organize further. And over land in general, you're away from the fuel source, so that's not going to lead to it strengthening very much. So that land interaction with Hispaniola will significantly impact its structure in the next 12 to 18 hours. Now, north of the Dominican Republic, north of Cuba, there's plenty of warm water there, plenty of fuel available that likely, if this storm has any semblance of structure once it re-enters the open waters, will take advantage of, and conditions going forward down the forecast line do look a little bit more favorable. I want to go back and show you what it looks like here in terms of sea surface temperatures. We need 80 degrees or warmer for tropical development. That latent heat release of the oceans, it uses it for energy. We got that, certainly. And in fact, temperatures were warm along the forecast track along the west coast of Florida. We get into the mid-80s. On top of that, that warm water is not just located on the skin of the ocean, it extends down to a depth. So with hurricanes and tropical systems in general, they mix up the water, something called upwelling. And usually, if the warm water is only at the skin of the surface of the ocean, it mixes up cooler waters. When you've got enhanced ocean heat content, like we do here, indicated by the colors of yellow and turquoise and aqua, that means that heat extends down to a depth, and if upwelling does occur, it just continues to mix up warm water. So unlimited fuel source. And as we go forward here, there are some sweet spots of enhanced ocean heat content south of the Florida Keys and north of the north coast of Cuba. So we'll see if it takes advantage of that in the next 12 to 24 hours or so. So here's the forecast advisory and the forecast track. Again, weakening down to a tropical depression within the day today as it moves over the enhanced terrain. Starts to re-enter the northern portions of the Cuba coast by late tonight and into tomorrow. Still as a tropical depression. Then some modest strengthening looks likely to occur as it's over the open fuel source, the warm waters of the Caribbean there in the southwest Atlantic. Back up to 45 mile per hour winds. So back up to a tropical storm here by Friday night. And by, say, Friday night, Saturday morning, we could have some tropical storm force winds into the Keys if, in fact, this track does hold. But again, this area is going to be one to watch for it to develop and strengthen further, and again along the west coast of Florida where conditions will be conducive for that to occur. We're going to talk about low wind shear, moist environment, as well as the very warm sea surface temperatures there off the west coast of Florida. Very similar track to Elsa, pretty much from the Keys northwards. Right now, it's not located where Elsa was. All right, here's the models, the GFS ensembles. What this is a spaghetti plot. This is the GFS run several different times. We tweak it slightly, change the variables a little bit to see what the outcome would be. And there's a lot of confusion with this model. You can see the dispersion of the ensemble members as we go farther out in time. A couple days ago, this was much more in line with the cone of uncertainty. Now we're seeing the spread extend out anywhere from Cape Hatteras in North Carolina to the Yucatan Peninsula and the Gulf of Mexico. So a lot can happen. There are a lot of variables in play here. We're going to have to see how it encounters that land interaction and how it evolves going forward. Let's look at the global models now, the GFS and the European, both of them forecasting that land interaction there with the enhanced terrain. And then as we go forward over the north coast of Cuba, a disheveled system, still a close center of circulation though as we get into tomorrow night, and then slowly starting to get its act together. Here we are at the Florida Keys by Saturday morning. Doesn't really look like an impressive system, at least on these runs of the models. But a little farther out in time here as we start to track along the west coast of Florida, takes advantage of the warmer ocean waters, and we could see some modest strengthening here. The European model in the red shows a stronger system closer to the coast, just north of Tampa. The GFS farther out in the Gulf of Mexico and a little bit more disorganized, but both of them gaining strength and organizing as they lift north towards the panhandle of Florida, maybe even the Big Bend area, which is where Elsa made landfall about a month ago. Probability of seeing at least tropical storm force winds, very low right now this far out in the forecast period, but along the west coast of Florida, the Florida Keys, 20, 30, maybe getting up to 40% chance of those 39-mile-per-hour winds or stronger. Now, the wind radii, the wind field of this storm is very small. Its overall stature is very small. So tropical storm force winds only extending out about 25 miles from that center, if in fact they're actually making it that far out. As we go farther out in time here, north part of Cuba, start to see that wind field get a little bit stronger. Again, on the right side of the storm track, the right, front right, is where we're going to find the strongest of the winds. And that's what you're looking like here in that kidney bean shape. And then by Friday night, 7 p.m., we could be having 45 mile-per-hour winds in the Florida Keys as the storm looks to track right over it. Now, of course, tropical systems, we're talking about a lot of moisture, a lot of rainfall. Now, models are saying, 2, 3, 4 inches of rainfall possible in South Florida. Higher squalls a possibility, but by this point in time, it's going to be moving pretty quickly, so we're not talking about a widespread flood threat. All right, that's Fred. Now, we're getting closer to the peak of the season, so activity starting to flare up, and we have one other area to talk about. This right here, this swirl in the middle parts of the Atlantic is Invest 95L. If you remember what INVEST means, it stands for investigative area. 95 is a rotation of a number, 90 to 99, and then we recycle it. And then the L just lets us know that it's in the Atlantic Basin. Chances are now moderate, 50%, that we see that develop into our next named system within the next 5 days or so. Here's how it looks on infrared imagery. It's got its act together there, but when I switch it up to visible, you can kind of see that there is a broad circulation. There is no closed low here because it's still an open wave. But it looks like maybe a little bit of wind shear affecting it with a lot of the convection located on the westerly side of that broad rotation. Models see this pretty much moving due west towards the same areas that just dealt with a PTC before Fred got that upgrade, the Leeward and Windward Islands, potentially by the end of the weekend and early next week. So a lot of time between now and then for any land impacts. All right, until next time, you can find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. We'll have another update later with David Paul.